In South Africa, there's no single story. There's no single narrative. Everything is loaded and charged.
Living through the apartheid era, there was a feeling of hopelessness and loneliness in a way. There was always a reminder that danger was around the corner. I mean, we were scared as hell.
There was a cultural boycott, and this scene that happened, the rave and the techno, was alarming because we'd been so isolated as a country.
The negative atmosphere contributed to the success of this whole thing.
There was this vibe that this thing had, and we just went on imagination.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna tell you that we knew exactly what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing.
But we changed the face of music.
It was anarchy, but in a very beautiful, beautiful way.
Freedom has a way of causing some kind of euphoria. We had just come out of the bubblegum music era. That is fertile ground for artistic expression.
Back in the day, there was a South African sound that we used to play, which was, we called it bubblegum. You know, I mean, the sounds of, you know, Brenda Fassie.
Chico, Lucky Dube, Samko Mota, Stimela, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, Brenda Fassie. We were admirers at that time, but we had that fortune of working with them. I played keyboards, he played keyboards for Chico. This one was a dancer at that time. Serious dancer for videos when they
It was a lot of things happening in body pop and all that, you know, Beat Street and all that. House music, it was huge on the underground circuit. DJs who were remixers, guys like Frankie Knuckles, guys like Louis Vega, you know, Todd Terry's. There were DJs like me, they were taking records and remixing them. And although it wasn't played a lot on any radio stations, but it was a huge underground movement.
When I came back to South Africa, I found, coming out of London, I found the social scene incredibly morbid.
We were made hostile, we were militarized at school, we had cadets. It was impossible for me to live within my white secular community, so I fled. I came to Joburg.
It wasn't like it was integrated or different or not integrated. It's just people found their little tribes or their posses.
Apartheid at that time was in critical condition. The patient was in ICU. One way or another, it was clear that the winds of change were sweeping in this country.
Back then, at some point, we knew that change was coming, and we were embracing that change, aware that there was a shift and movement towards something new.
While we found ourselves in a space of freedom where we could take drugs, we could meet like-minded people, we also were politically incredibly obtuse about the black life of the majority of the citizens.
It must have been 1989. It was very difficult to get music back in those days. I had coincidentally befriended an air stewardess. And when she went on a London trip, she would pop into a record store in London and buy them for me and bring them back. Thank you very much. 5, 10, 15, 20. Took the ones I liked, the rest I put in the boot of my car and drove around to the clubs in Johannesburg and Pretoria, and I used to sell these 12-inch vinyls out of the boot of my car.
Some discussions that come about, well, listen, just things are so morbid and so negative, let's just throw a huge party. Let's just do something about it.
The first rave, I think it was at Piccadilly in Yeovil, which is an old cinema.
Was in the middle of the winter, 1992.
It took kind of a high-tech disco theme and it just blew it up 100 times. We had lasers, smoke machines, massive sound system. The sound system was 10 times too large for the venue.
The cinema hadn't been used in many, many years. I remember because they pellet gunned all the pigeons to clear the space, and wow, what a cleanup.
We procured the venue under the auspices of doing a film shoot, an ad.
Preston had somehow got hold of Tim and Christos, and we were part of the DJ lineup. That's how we met him for the first time.
And it was Graham G-Force, Pedro, Christos, that group. It was the first time I heard that music in that context, and my life changed.
At that stage, I met the 16-year-old DJ. His name was Christos. Became my biggest customer, used to buy all the time.
I was kind of an underground DJ in a sense, even though those days you can't really say underground. That was like 1988, 87. I was working at a place called Jacqueline's. I moved back to Pretoria to a place called Gemini. It was a state-of-the-art club in the townships, and they were really playing the right music.
Yo, it used to be like crazy, especially Tembisa. It was Tembisa and Pretoria. They were like the capitals of street bash.
A township bash, anyone outside of South Africa would see it as a block party. From one end of the street to the one other, you kind of block it, and it would be a party. The Brenda Fassies of this world, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, Kamazu, all those artists were fading. And there was this new breed of the Mdus of this world, or the Trompies, or Arthur. There was almost like an invisible handing over of the baton from one generation to the next. So it went from hiding people who were involved in the struggle to let's have a party on our own, let's have a street bash. And from street bashes, it went to little stadia, arenas, that sort of thing.
Think about it, at a bash, 20,000 black people in there. Here's this white boy playing. Isn't he supposed to be playing techno or something like that?
Not really, you know. People get lost in music, you know. Color and a whole lot of other things don't matter. You know, it's about the groove. The biggest problem with that was more the cops. I think I changed my name like 10 times, just simply because the cops are after you.
Christos used to play in the club in Pretoria, white club, playing techno and rave. Yeah, we got stopped one of the nights coming back where it was like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing in town? No, we just came from a club. A white club? Yes, a white club. Get out of the city, go home, and don't ever come back here. I was like, okay. It was a scary time. God knows what could have happened. But I suppose the music and all the artists and producers that were around at the time, you know, they made sure that the country didn't bend. Meeting with him, forming this partnership, forming this friendship as well, where now we call DJs at work, white boy, black boy together in SA. It doesn't happen.
This is also the right angle.
There's Chris's ice cream.
Junior, what are you having?
Nothing, nobody wants to buy me anything.
This Boom Shaka project was meant to be a studio project, but it developed to something else. I was running a club called Arena. I used to have like dancing competition there. That club, Lebu, they had a group called LMT. That's when I first realized the energy. Junior told us, no, Oscar, you know, those days they used to call me Oscar the Big O. No, Lebu can sing. Then from there, boom.
Lebo was on point, like always on point. So I brought Alias instrumental back and forth. Every time we go to shows inside the Kumbi, we put the CD, put instrumental, then we freestyle. Within 2 days, Lebo would be doing the same thing, you know.
Used to love dancing. All she needed was dance. They were young kids, eh? When they come there, when I go in there, when I start DJing,
Are we going on now?
everyone is watching them. Wow, the energy which they used to keep back. Let's just dance.
When I started discovering popular culture in Joburg, black culture, I was so terrified of my whiteness. The actual queer scene in Pretoria was very vicious. It was this white, gay, draggy, vicious scene. I never felt particularly safe in the gay club spaces. So I never clubbed until I discovered Jovel and the burgeoning art movement of the liberation time.
Chill out, man. Everything's cool.
Yeovil was exciting for a lot of us. It made everything possible. I mean, all kinds of creatives were living in Yeovil, from your filmmakers, musicians, artists. Everybody was there.
Black people and white people were starting to mix in a very curious way around arts and culture. And I think when these clubs started to happen, they were previously white-owned clubs, and a lot of black people were getting into these areas. It was a totally new market altogether.
These glitzy fabrics, sequels, tinfoil, plastic. From 1990 to 95, Yeovil, just as an area, was the seedbed of cosmopolitan. It was the only place, it was the only alternative area.
You were part of Yeovil if you were sort of open-minded and you were curious and you were tolerant.
Criticism of the rave scene would say that it's mindless, rich, whitey, drug-induced escapism. React.
I don't see it as a form of escapism, you know. I sort of see it rather as a way of coming to terms with reality, and the whole thing is very positive.
Then they started happening quite often. Each one was like incredibly special. We would party in Constitution Hill before it was Constitution Hill. These were spaces people hadn't been in for many, many years, so they added this allure of urban thrill.
There was a very parallel sort of awareness growing in the country between two different cultures, that dance music is a universal language.
You could argue that maybe it was ecstasy talking. There was quite a significant number of kids from Pretoria, white kids that grew up with ultra-fascist right-wing families that then were in this party scene.
We had no space to express ourselves or to hang out with people in a normal way. We would hang out at Skyline Bar in Hillbrook, where black and white men would have a space where we could be together. But it was still very pointedly that space. It wasn't a space necessarily of possibility. It was just this island in apartheid.
They were kind of going through some self-discovery themselves, because they would come up with things like, we never thought it would be possible to party with black people and find it okay.
You had a place inside the club, and it was really about dancing, right? We were there to dance. The absolute freedom of the space was something I'd never experienced before.
The message is to be happy. Yeah. Be happy, to be alive, to be glad that you're alive and that you're leading a good life.
And you can move to prove it.
And music is life.
Right.
Played a lot of the Chicago house kind of jazz-influenced music.
I think that American house music was born out of R&B and soul, which already resonated with South Africans here. So there was a natural affiliation to it. Where Europe was more techno, non-vocal, just much too hard and abrasive for the South African market at that stage. Yeah. Acid house music is pouring out of the UK, so we're influenced by that sound.
Disco ended. Tim brought out this other stuff, hip house and this acid house.
Techno, jungle, breakbeats, it really opened up the whole market for a different groove, a different vibe.
If you're talking about club spaces in Joburg at this time, we need to remove ourselves from the white rave scene, which might have had all the bling, but wasn't the core of what would shape the culture. What would shape the culture would be quiet.
A lot of the stuff I was stocking was more white-orientated music, but I was getting the wrong music. And after meeting Christos, who had a knowledge of more the soulful black house music that was coming from America, it wasn't coming from Europe. We needed to switch our business into more supplying soulful house music, and we ran Megatrax Records, servicing the black market with the music that they particularly liked.
I think musically it was not a specific sound, it was very sophisticated, it was advanced, it was soulful, it was jazzy, it was vocal, you know, it had a real appeal to it.
This music that we were importing from overseas that is only available on vinyl is popular with everyone, but they cannot buy it. How can we make this music available to the masses?
It was very difficult to license anything. You know, as soon as they heard you from South Africa, it was like, no, we don't deal with you, you know, you're banned. You had two options. Either you did things illegally or you chopped the songs.
Basically do a cover version of the song, slow it down a bit, change it a little bit.
If we took records and played them at 33 and pitched them up, they actually sound very cool.
It started shifting from high-speed house, Oskidos, Christos. They started slowing down the tempo.
A lot of the house tracks were like 120 BPM. Then they'll slow them down to about 110, 100, 110. It's slower, it's groovy, and then they add their own vernacular lyric on top of it.
Those days I couldn't even play any keyboard. We would take the vinyl and then from there listen to the records, you know, kind of like slow it down.
We kind of tweaked them and made them ourselves and redid them.
That was a revolutionary response by young people saying, we are now reclaiming the streets because we had lost freedom. Our focus was, we are going to give these people a reason to dance.
Spikiri and Mahout and myself, we used to be working at some studios in Johannesburg there at Hout Street, where we were under the supervision of the big white man who was running a lot of artists of those times. We are sound engineers there. We work for bars, but at least make a song, Nyana. Do the projects there, one Nyana song, or when you get a chance, one Nyana song. It was a creation of a new vibe, of a new music.
Arthur Mofokati. He was 18, 19, he was a dancer, and he was learning how to program on an old Atari computer. Here comes Tim, the white guy with this really kicking black house music. He was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm keen to program that.
President in dance music, internship dance culture. That I can do.
Arthur was the engineer, and we programmed these big popular hits onto a cassette called Groove City Volume 1, took it to market, and the thing sold about 40, 50,000 copies and blew me away. I couldn't believe it.
I had already released a cassette which was called DJ Pedro. Chris really enjoyed it so much, he said, hey, let's release it and see what happens. And that's how we came up with two DJs and a keyboard player. That big hit, Sekele, was born there.
That song was massive. I think we did like close to 200,000 units. I don't know, quadruple platinum. We pressed the tapes and we actually sold them ourselves through the boot of our cars. You drop off the tapes, you get the cash. And the nice thing is it was done innocently. It was not done with a plan. This is what we feel, this is what we want to put down. Wrong or right.
When Kwaito happened, things were out of control. I mean, I remember hearing Trompi's songs, Ibize Moyeni, you know, and I was like, wow, this is new. And then the next thing Mdu came out, I was like, wow, okay, this is different. And you're like, wait a minute, that house song slowed down. It's like, what is this sound? It doesn't make sense. People started talking about the lyrics don't make sense. I mean, that doesn't make sense, you know? But to people dancing to this track, to them, it makes a whole lot of sense.
We actually did cover versions, which Junior rapped on. Lebu did something. Then we came up with the original of Makwere.
To be honest, with the Boom Shaka thing, it wasn't really like Christos. Boom Shaka, the original, it's my solo thing. Lebo brought Tembi and Theo because they were dancing together. That SWV thing and stuff, yeah.
People started demanding for that tape, but we couldn't because our distribution network was small. So all these big companies who told us to fuck off, who told us to go, who didn't want to sign the record label, they came knocking at our doors.
We just put in more drums and a bit more percussion in the song, myself and Oscar, but Don did the song.
We didn't have studios. So Don Laga was the only guy that we knew looking fly, and at that time, you know, Don Laga's group was very fly, you know, they were like on another tip. With Pradon, I think he came with the production expertise. All of them, Don Laga, Christos, Oskido, those are the people that really supported us. Makwere was like one of the opening that really opened the doors for us. It's a track that was like giving props to foreigners, people that were making an honest living out of hard work. Sikati ndibodire mushaba onke, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, gentlemen.
When they wanted to promote that album, they took this crowd from the clubs in Hillbrow. It was completely different to this quite sanitized, very futurist, white rave space.
You know, Kwaito, we've been always talking about things that are happening, most of the time. We relate our story to what's happening in the ghettos. We relate our story to what's happening in our lives. So we had to change people's minds, you know. We had to massage people with our music, not talk about the same thing that Chigo and Brenda and all the other guys were talking about before.
So there was a lot more ownership in this thing.
New record shops were opening, guys were setting up DJ studios. It was very productive in the long run.
All the DJs, they used to go and buy music from Christos. He was a DJ and he had a shop selling vinyls and stuff. So Oskido and them, they used to go and get the music from there.
The weekly congregation that, you know, at the record store, you meet all these guys who are DJs we don't know, but because we almost like networking every week, like, hey, where do you play? I'm playing at a club in Hillbrow. Where do you play? I play in Soshanguve. What kind of music do you play? Play this sound. Oh, so you like it too? Oh, nice. Okay, House Africa was Team White and G-Force. They had this techno vibe going on the other side.
It was more white music, and Tim and Vinny and them were doing what's more the black music.
While I'm sitting on my side selling vinyl, you could hear the sound that's playing on the other side. I'm like, okay, so that is techno that they're talking about. I'll go sit with G-Force, and then he'll school me in terms of the techno sound. Some of it I'm enjoying. Some of it I'm like, wow, this is too hard for me, you know? And they'll invite me, Vinny, just come and see what's going on. And I get there, you find a lot of lighting and laser lights and big sound with their little light joysticks or whatever, which was quite fun. And for me, I was like, wow, this is actually nice.
Well, I mean, Tim and Vinny were really the link. Before then, there were scenes that were happening, but they were not connecting at all.
In 1993, I was with Oskido, Mdu, Boomshaka, Arthur, you know. We were touring the whole South Africa with this new music we're talking about, Kwaito.
Not only did the music change, but the way in which people bought the music and consumed it and played it changed as well. These Kwaito guys were selling music on cassettes from the boots of their cars.
They filled my boot with boxes of cassettes. We drove up there. 2 stops at 2 different Indian dealers. The boot was empty, the cash was there, and we drove back.
The majors turned us down. It was the new sound. For them, it didn't work. Myself, Don Christos, we decided that we're gonna go and press, 500 cassettes. Then we started distributing it ourselves. We go to Indian shops. The guys will say, no, leave 10, and when it sells, you come and pick up your money.
Because of apartheid spatial living, you had to get on a taxi or a train, maybe 2 taxis to go to Steve's, and then you couldn't find it, was sold out, and then you have to go back and order one. Now the music is coming to you.
Completely independent of anybody or anything else.
So when Kwaito came through, it changed a heck of a lot of things.
I think by the time everybody caught up with what was happening, we had been doing it like for years in the townships.
We're DJing at Slukhelo in Pretoria, and we're to put tables together.
I'll just grab the mic, go under the tables, and then I would start freestyling. People would come to us, kid, no man, we want that song.
The Johannesburg fort was commissioned in the region of about 1893 by the then Republic President Paul Kruger. It was built initially to keep control over the Uitlanders, which were the British and foreign members that lived down in the mining town of Johannesburg at the time. The fort was then changed into a prison. Notable people to mention are Mr. Mahatma Gandhi and our now state president, Mr. Nelson Mandela. And it would have been in these positions that various parades and ceremonies were held. All right.
I think I just resigned from Caesar's Palace. I got a call from Chris Galakis. Pedro, why don't we just do a techno club here? Are you keen? Are you interested? Pitched it to Tim and Preston. From there, Fourth World was born.
And so we brought Pretoria and Joburg together through that collaboration. The whole thing was just, let's do it.
Preston was the one that ran the club, and he was like this kind of figure in the nightlife.
Preston, what's happening next year?
We're coming back with revenge. Next year we get serious, we get real.
But you know what's so interesting is who knows where the rave scene is going to be next year.
Surround sound, movies, virtual reality.
I think, you know what I think?
That's it. We get real next year.
And this time we're not fucking around, we're just talking about it. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
As you came up the stair, there was a sort of lunar man like that greeted you as you walked in. You'd just literally come around the corner and there'd just be this underground. There was nothing. It was just literally a sound system, one light, and music.
While there was this fourth world scene, I was also going out to other things that were mainly black and maybe queer orientated, but that had nothing to do with that music we were hearing in fourth world.
We'd literally be able to play anything. People experienced it together. It was like a family. It was magic.
We'd accomplished in the first event what we had set out to achieve, which was to bring people together that would normally not party together. And so I think that drew a whole group of other people that we hadn't managed to reach.
It was a very intense club. Look, one has to be honest and say that drugs played a huge part in Fourth World. Ecstasy and acid had started to infiltrate into South Africa at that stage. These young white kids that were into this harder scene were taking the drugs. It was a big part of what made Fourth World and a dance floor of 200 people who are totally into the same type of music, trashed, having an amazing time. Anyone who experienced that, trashed or not trashed, it blew them away.
I didn't have a big presence at Fourth World at all. I played there once in a while. It was not really my scene. There was a lot of drugs floating around, stuff like that, and I wanted to stay away from it. I wanted to stay away from people taking drugs to enjoy music.
Fourth World was the first multiracial, open-minded, anything goes, come and have fun kind of club, you know what I mean? It was really progressive in all sense of the word.
No. Integrated in what, in terms of race, or there were not. It was such a completely new thing to all of us, what was going on, the music, that we were just electrified and charged by this new thing that we couldn't quite figure out. I guess those topics around gender and race were put into the back burner somehow, because there was this thing that was new and we didn't know what it was, but we liked it. And it was also it's pretty interesting given the type of history and we went through and we were going through at the time, that we didn't really question how wide the scene was at the time. Yeah.
We were exercising our freedom, but we were escaping from reality. I think we all accepted that we were new South Africans without interrogating our whiteness and our past and what we continue to contribute to an unequal society.
I look back at those evenings with fond memories. I hated it. I hated the running of the club, standing there at a door at 4 o'clock in the morning, dealing with out-of-hand people is not my best thing, but it was an amazing place for a short period of time, yeah.
At the same time, Fourth World scene reached its peak. Kwaito was also having its moment. I mean, Mosquito, Boom Shaka, and these guys were just killing it.
I felt personally that that sound was not evolving. It's the same old thing going over and over again. Nothing has changed. Yes, it's a big sound. You know, the market loves it, but we felt we needed something just to inject it, just to give it, you know, more legs. Our first production blew up. The track was called Hey DJ with the late Level Matosa.
I don't feel that the white rave scene ever created anything particularly unique to South Africa. What you would see is that the modernness of that scene being picked up by the Kwaito crowd, the bands and the stylistas like Thembi Siete and Lebo that were able to take from the freshness of that scene and make an authentic South African idiom, design idiom out of it.
There was a whole lot of things that we did in terms of, you know, getting younger kids to come in. If you're a promoter, come, let's chat. If you're a DJ, come, let's chat. And, you know, if you're up and coming, a lot of the big name DJs that are around, producers that are around today, most of them come from there. People like DJ Cleo comes from there. Black Coffee started there. Kent, Euphonic. When I'm not there anymore, I need somebody to, you know, take the baton and just run with it.
And I think that's what brings me and Vinny very close together. It's not about hype. You know, we don't give a shit about hype. You go in, do your job, and bring out the passion. When you get behind those decks, you're playing out of your heart.
Christos and Vinny, they saw the possibility of the music. They were like church people. They had a vision. They knew that this thing could be healing.
Slowly but surely, we managed to break into the market, especially once radio picked up on it.
When we started playing on 5FM, we started crossing over to the white market, and the whole unit was like, you know, something else.
Radio has always been a supporter of new music that comes out because it's broadcast. The consumer speaks. And the more they wanted the music, the more it happened. So, I mean, think about this for a second. You had radio stations like Springbok Radio and Radio 5, which was playing rock. And then on the other hand, you had the black radio stations, which were divided in two. There was your African language stations, which played your Tatamea traditional music. And then there was your urban radio stations like Metro and Radio Bob. But when this Kwaito thing started to happen, everybody started to compete on, I played it first. The resistance crumbled, so to speak, because people were loving the music.
The tracks were becoming so incredibly popular that these producers were now able to command 100,000 Rand liquid cash in a week and start building their businesses, start creating self-owned businesses, owning their own publishing, their own rights. And this is how, thanks to this house music scene that became the Kwaito scene, that became the black house scene, we have one of the only truly transformed business sectors in South Africa where black-owned independents own the local music scene, make the most money from it.
Now, if you look at where our musical roots are at, we've got the young blood who are taking it to another level.
This generation, like, we are the most fortunate ones, you know, because now you don't even need to get a record deal. You know, you can make songs, put them on the side, make a bit of money. Even if you're in high school, man, you can start making your own money.
We have our own unique scene that's influenced by the past, challenging the status quo of electronic music. Your FK Mashes, your Dawsons, Kid Funk pushing his Stay True sound label. It makes our culture, our house culture, a rich culture that's different to, you know, Detroit and whatnot. there's nowhere else in the world that you'd hear this type of sound. And I'm proud. I'm like, I want to show the world that SA is actually competing with the world, you know.
When you think about how house music started in a warehouse in Chicago, here's a section of the population which was ostracized. All of a sudden, that music grew and grew in that warehouse in Chicago, and the normal people started to like that music. So it grew out of the gay community into mainstream society, and from then on to all parts of the world. And when it landed in this country, it was so unique and beautiful that many people didn't even know that house music was actually originated by the gay community in Chicago in a warehouse, not even in a club.
Pop culture is never popular. Pop culture is the opposite, it's the counter, and it's normally going to be from the black kids, the end. That's the history of pop culture. But pop culture always starts as counter, opposite to the mainstream. And once the mainstream discovers it, then it buys it.
If you come up with something that's totally identifiable from a South African point of view, you're going to make it. And house music and not hip-hop has proven that.
We didn't have to imagine anymore. There was something happening here. A lot of our sound now influences international sounds. What a great place to be alive in the music world today, man. It's amazing.
If this is what happened with this kind of music, then the lineage and the heritage is even more beautiful in that it transcended all kinds of perceptions. These guys, the forefathers, the torchbearers of this genre, really did a lot to put South African flavor on the map. And every time I think about them, I think, you know, we created something special there. Jeez, man, some serious memories flashing through.